What is identity? Is it the passions and curiosities we follow? Or is it the people we connect to and love? Is it the history we share? Or could it be the values we are taught? Join me, and through performance and discussion, we learn to embrace our identities. Hello there. Right. So I thought I'd better just set this up quickly. There I am. There's my camera. So welcome to Q&A live interview number 3 with the pink suits. Now, this is not live. It's obviously recorded. Basically, had a little bit of a technical issue at the beginning, which is, third time unlucky for me, where I didn't, the thing wasn't recording. So I had to stop it. But to be honest with you, we started it slightly in progress with Lenny from the Pink Suits, just explaining who the Pink Suits were about. We missed about 2 minutes at the beginning, so apologies for that. But without further ado, here is the interview. And let me know what you think in the comments below. And number 4 is coming out on Wednesday, the 30th of October. So get your tickets from Eventbrite tomorrow. And enjoy the interview. Take care, everyone. And keep embracing your identity.
But we also, all right, you got it.
I got it.
We're a punk band. We have a country music band. We run a country music night called Queer Cuntry. We run a lot of kind of community events and performance nights over the last few years, music nights, cabaret, big gay prom, things like that. And then we do cabaret performance. We make artwork, we make dance work,
We basically do anything people will pay us to do.
Well,
anything.
And a lot of things that people won't pay us to do.
Yeah.
but I mean, straight away for me, like putting that into identity as well, it's like, how do you like following all these different not coincidences, but following all these different curiosities? I mean, is there anything that particular signals to you? This is something I'd like to try. This is something I want to do, or I mean, how do all these sort of different strands of self come about to you both?
Well, we both trained in dance. Like I did dance from the age of 3. That was just like what my parents put me in, and that was what I did like through high school and like did like a sort of like uni level dance course in San Francisco. And it was just like honestly, because my parents put me in it, then I just did it and I liked it and I was pretty good at it, so I just stuck with it. And you did some dance as well.
I did dance I always did performance, theater, drama from high school level, and then did dance at like sixth form. I went to a like ballet school, like university level. So my degree's in dance.
So I think like we started making more dance work, cabaret stuff that kind of like made sense. That's what we knew. But actually, when we started Pink Suits, it was massively out of the frustration of doing dance work and feeling like a lot of dance work sort of professes to be about something or be political, and it's not the most direct form. Like you can say it's about anything, and ultimately when you watch it a lot of the time, you're watching it thinking like, is it? Or are you just dancing?
Yeah.
Like it's not the very direct dance form. It's great and it does a lot of things, but it's not direct and you can't say very clearly a lot of the time what you want. So partly why we started the punk band Pink Suits, which is what we started with when we started the name. It was just because we were really frustrated and it was 2016, like end of 2016. So Brexit had just happened, Trump had just got elected. Like it was feeling really stressful. Now I'm like, God, that was fucking chill.
Yeah.
It's so much more crazy now, but yeah, so I think that we started that just because we wanted to say stuff. We just wanted to scream about the state of things and,
I think we
be more
also
direct with what we were making.
I think we also get and I don't know if you feel this like with your artistic practice, but we get a bit, I don't know if restless is the word. Like you want to explore new things after a chunk of time doing something. So we'd done dance work and we'd done some dance performance stuff, traveled around a bit in some dance companies and done some kind of nice dance,
Yeah,
abstract dance, contemporary performance stuff. And then I had a big chunk of time around the time we met when
yeah.
I was doing what I would consider like quite political stuff, like performance art stuff. But it was like avant-garde and abstract, and sometimes it would have text in it. You talk about things like sexuality or identity or, you know, relationships and but the work would be quite out there and performative,
Hmm.
more like performance art. And then after doing that for 5 or 6 years, like the idea of starting a band and doing music was like we were really drawn to it, even though we had no music knowledge or training or experience at all. It just seemed to be like, I don't know, the idea went off and we were like, yeah, we've done dance, we've done live art performance. Let's see what it's like to be to be musicians, to be a band and see what kind of stuff we make.
When we first started, we definitely were more of like, it was more like gig theater. I mean, we didn't know how to play music, so we couldn't really be a band. So we had to be like, it's theater, but we're like writing songs, um, which was fun and fine. And we quite quickly were like, we want to just be a band. We don't want to be doing like the mix, the like
Yeah.
crossover place was like not fun. I guess with that style of music too, it's like you don't want to do it to a theater audience. You don't want people to be sitting down. Like you want it to feel more, it felt kind of fake if you're doing it like that in a way. So yeah, so eventually, yeah, we just have mainly been doing that. And then all the other things, like, we still carried on doing a lot of cabaret stuff when people wanted us to. And yeah, I guess we do maybe get a little bored of stuff. We need like quite a lot of different things to do
Hmm.
so we can just like keep ourselves
Listen,
busy.
I completely appreciate that, having lots of different strands to pull from and stuff like that, and know that, yeah. Oh, you've gone through so many things that I'd love to talk about. I guess for me as well, it's sort of like about the intent to change as well. So you said there, like, okay, we weren't truly a band. We were more sort of like not sort of like not an authentic band. But then again, as soon as you made that decision to want to become a band, in a way, even though you didn't have mastery of the instruments to agree, you've made that conscious decision that this is how you want to be perceived. So
Mhm.
isn't that something to do with like how you sort of choose to identify yourself? Then that resonates with how people are viewing you, or did you
Yeah.
find it a need that, okay, we've done this, we've made this conscious decision, this is how I want to be perceived? But as you said, the relationship of audience expectations, what they think, the area they're coming to, if you're expected just to sit down and you perform for us now, or like you say, you're in a gig and people have the perception of like, we're going to have a few drinks, we're going to jump around a bit and stuff as well. Do you find like differences there as well? Did you find it necessary to want to change that audience before you could feel authentic in what you were doing? Or was it just purely about making that decision, we are
I
now a band?
I think it's a bit of both, and I think that the two influence each other. I think there was definitely when it was gig theater stuff, we were doing there was some dance in it, there was some videos, storytelling, we did some poetry, we did some music. It was like the early song, we just started writing songs and there was, I don't know, 5 or 6 songs in a show and then we dance and throw each other around and tell stories. And it was like an unauthentic expression of what we were coming up with at the time. Like it was the best we could do, and we were excited by it and quite proud of it. But it did sort of feel stuck in between a world that we knew, which was theater and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of live art performance theater, and a world that we didn't know, which was like gigging and like music. And it did always feel like there was just a bit of like we had to make a break. And we were like, if we're going to be the band, as opposed to be the band, if
Yeah.
we're going to do it and be musicians and be a band and write songs and, maybe write an album, we should go fully into it and cut the sort of ambiguous, like sitting in between the genres and just, start gigging as a band.
Mm.
So we were sort of in and out. We still did a few gigs in like theatre spaces. We did like Bristol, what is it, Bristol Old
Yeah,
Vic,
I think we
and
just like we didn't know how to get a gig. So like
Mm.
it made sense to do, or it was just like naturally what happened, and like the like connections and contacts we knew we had were in theater. So it
Yeah.
sort of was just like it just sort of happened like that we started doing stuff in theater. And then we did do like eventually some of those more theatery shows in music venues and in more music gig scenarios, which is hard because they're always like the stage is tiny, there's chords everywhere, like it's
yeah.
not, no one's running the show, so you have to like it's stressful, but also the more performancey aspects went down way better in a music venue because people were just like, you guys are insane. What are you doing? This is so weird.
Yeah.
Whereas in theater, it's kind of like everyone's sort of expecting you to do, they sort of like sit there and like watch it and try
Yes.
like figure out what it means.
Yeah, if
And
you
in a
if
music
you
venue, people are just like, wow, you guys got naked and like jumped around. I've never seen anything
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that. So
Yeah,
that was
if
kind of
you
like, yeah, it was kind of figuring out. And I think from that we were like, music venues are more fun to play than than
Mm.
theater venues. So it's like, okay, let's just do this.
and to go back to your question before, that shift once we made it massively changed the like our feeling within the performance, like and the identity of the band. We didn't know, like we never set out to be a punk band, actually. We kind of wanted to be a glam rock band.
Right.
I think like the early photos we took, like when we first started, before we had any songs and we were going to be a band, we took some pictures. It was like we had long hair and we were wearing like like kind of like pink flares and like a neckerchief. It was sort of like a little, yeah, like Mark Bolan kind of glam rock style
Mm.
with like, sparkly
We wore a lot
guitars
of
and lots of
leotards.
leotards and thigh-high boots and like high-heeled thigh-high boots. But we didn't know music well enough to musically be a glam rock band. Also, there's just two of us.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
songs that we wanted to sing were like about like fuck the government, why is everything so shit? We're all really angry. So the
Yeah.
music came out like super punk, but we didn't know. It was just
Genre wise, we had any intention.
yeah.
Like we were just like, song. This is the song.
It was
And when we first started, a lot of the songs we wrote were very different in style. And then we wanted to wear certain outfits, so it sort of felt like that. But mainly people started being like, you guys are a punk band. And we were like, oh, cool. Okay.
Now you see, I really like this because I want to ask you a question on this because you have sort of, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it almost seems to me this is something very interesting about creativity and identity and how a very artistic way of seeing it, that you have put an intent out there that you have wanted to bring forth creativity. You've wanted to bring forth an idea. And then it's sort of almost like, I don't know, we're going to call it the universe, woo, whatever, has brought these intentions back to you. And in a way, you have found your authentic identity, your authentic selves by going through all of these different options. It's almost like you say, like you tried on the clothes of the glam rock band and you're like, okay, these fit. But then as you've gone through these different iterations of self, the music has started to find you that like your intentions have shaped the universe and then the universe intentions have shaped you back and you found what sort of fit you from all these different options.
Yeah, and then I mean, it's been what's it been since we started playing music? 7 years. So we've been doing it like, quite a while, and it's changed a lot during that. And I think initially doing it, having that creative impulse, writing a few songs and putting ourselves out there, always for the first couple of years, certainly felt to me like just a ticket to the party, like a ticket to
Mm.
the show. Like we had some material, it was good enough, and we were in.
Yeah,
And then once you're in the party, which is like the scene, this kind of music scene, the punk music scene, the queer performance scene, once you're in, you start to see what other people are doing, how they're doing it. And our music, even the songs that we already had, changed through playing in those spaces and seeing other bands and how they did it. And we wrote a few more songs around that time that became the first album. And then it was a proper punk album, what we
Yeah.
ended up with. And that shifted over a couple of years of just being in those spaces and, definitely feeling like authentically like part of it. Like we felt justified being there, but we had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
We just watched a lot of people and how they made music, how they performed, like what sort of things we like. You're learning sort of creative instincts by watching your peers do it. And then we got loads of shows and we've been playing for years. So the second album, which we put out this year, is like, a much more considered kind of punk album. We were like, we are a punk band.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is the intention, is to write a sort of aggressive punk album. And we have all of these influences from, 7 years of watching live punk bands, some of whom are, fucking amazing.
So almost would you say it's having that mix of having an intent, having a meaning, having a why, and then doing the repetition around the outside of it to give yourself maybe the confidence or the the experience to be able
Yeah.
to define yourself in that genre and to be, like as you said, to feel authentic? Or was it already like you felt authentic and it was just having to learn the skills around it to fully be able to, I don't want to quote my thing, but to fully embrace your identity as a
Yeah,
punk
yeah.
band? Oh, I just quoted that.
As you should, as you should.
It's definitely a combination.
Confidence,
Like, yeah.
confidence and competence. Like
Mm,
which I mean, most people who I'm, envious of, especially in the music world, as we're talking about music, but also back when I used to do dance, people that have done it forever, just how, they have a creative impulse and then they can work it out, they can do it, they can, generate some high quality output creatively because they have that skill set. I came to dance quite late and always had a frustration that I was like always playing catch up. And
mm.
I started to develop creative instincts, but like I was like, I didn't have a life of experience in doing it. And when we came to music, we had no experience of doing it. So as we started to develop these instincts to like write songs or, have, make music, it took us a while to get confident in playing what we could play, but also like years for us to develop competence to like realize our instincts.
Hmm.
Like there were certain songs that we could imagine, but I was like, I can't fucking play it. Like I can't, there's a sort of an excitement in the music that I see other bands doing, but I'm like, I got to learn how to do it because I never, you know,
Interesting.
we were starting from scratch on like literally Google, like YouTube,
Yeah.
how to construct how to construct a song, how to write a song. We were like how to write a punk song, how to play drums. Like it was literally like from scratch.
Yeah.
And I would love to ask you as well what you just said there about in dance, you always felt like you were playing catch up. But then in the pink suits, in this punk genre, the musical genre, is that not feeling like that? Do you feel like you're more welcomed, or does it feel like you have the more time, or does it feel like that it doesn't, I don't really want to put words into your mouth, but like I don't know if it doesn't feel so hierarchical, or you've got to hit certain stages before you feel like you're achieving stuff in dance compared to punk, where it is that very much get out there, do it, have the passion, have the desire, and learn along the way.
I mean, it's definitely that. Like that is the scene and that is the punk scene. There's still people that like, we get some reviews and people are like, the music's not good enough.
Hmm.
Which
Never said the music's not good enough. People say it's really basic, which it is kind
yeah,
of
and I agree.
basic.
I think
I
maybe I'm
find.
saying that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say, I definitely think in music in general, but definitely in the punk scene, like, and especially in the queer punk scene, it's
Hmm.
super welcoming. People are like super encouraging and nice. Other bands and also most audiences, I would definitely say like we are the ones in within the music being more critical of ourselves. Like we always are like feeling inadequate in the opposite way that in dance, I mean, if you're not good in dance, you also probably feel that, but like you can't just like go be a ballet dancer if you're
No,
not good enough. Like you can't do it. It doesn't work like that. Whereas like in music, you kind of can, and we definitely did. Like we weren't a good band I mean, like it's subjective, obviously, but like I definitely still think there's a lot of music stuff that we feel like we're faking it sometimes.
well, but
Now
okay,
and now we're not real like we're totally
yeah,
fine. No one has ever said that to us. We are obviously our worst critics. And like, the style of music that we're making is like it's about what we're saying. It's not about like the complexity of the like music structure or whatever. But but like, we've had reviews that are like, it's simple, it's basic. But I'm like, yeah, well, fine. I like that. So
I agree. I mean, the thing that the overriding reason why I love your band so much and why I was so happy to have you perform alongside me in Margate is because I don't I don't think simple is such a bad thing. I think passion can be simple, and that's what shines through every time I see you perform. You can have someone who is technically amazing, but you almost get that paralysis through analysis that they become so ingrained into everything has to be perfect, or that sense of
Mhm.
control, that they lose a lot of passion in what they're doing, that the message gets lost in the technique.
Yeah.
Almost
100%.
sort of
Yeah.
going back into dance in a way. So I was saying with you, it's like with the passion you have, but also how do you balance that self-criticism? Because there is a need. We all have well, I shouldn't say that. I have a self-criticism as well, that you want to progress. You want to feel like there is an achievement level, that something that you have something of worth to say, and you are in somehow getting better at saying it, more efficient, or being able to more proficient, or being able to espouse more. But how do you balance that sort of self-criticism, which doesn't shut you down? How do you sort of balance the passion and maybe, okay, there's more to learn, but I still want to get out there, I still want to rock it tonight, because I feel the passion, I feel that I can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Oh,
we just
you
did we
just
just
have
we,
to,
yeah.
otherwise you won't do anything. You
Yeah,
just have to
yeah.
be like, okay, like if I want to do this, like you have to do it and feel inadequate for a while. And I think that that's also, I don't know, I guess like for me anyway, like dance training is quite good with that,
Mm,
of being like, you can always get better and there's always going to be things you don't know. Like, it's never like, oh, and now I know it. Like, you're always like striving. So I think that's like, yeah, I guess there must be some creative, I don't know, I guess all creative outputs are like that, where you're like, I don't know that many artists in any genre that feel like super confident. And actually, the most people who feel the most confident are usually people who don't have as much knowledge. Because when
completely.
you don't know, then you're
Exactly. The
like,
unconscious,
I'm killing it,
incompetence. Yeah, where they're just like, yeah, I'm brilliant.
which is like beautiful to see, but also you're like, wow, okay.
But
I also
Yeah.
I also think on that, like we sort of have that narrative in ourselves of like, it should be better, and it can be better, and it will be better. And then,
mm,
so maybe sometimes get a little frustrated being like, God, like I want to get there.
yeah.
But I think we're also quite like good to ourselves and realistic that like the stuff that we're making is good and it's totally good enough. And we are proud of it and value it and think it should be out there and we should be performing it, whilst also maintaining that like we also know it could, there's places that we want to go creatively. And in
Mm,
order to get there, we need to do, right now I'm thinking about the next album or the next kind of bit of music that we put out, and we have some sort of creative impulses that I'm aware that I don't know enough to do.
mm,
So I'm just aware that like we can gig right now, the material that we've got, I think it's good. We can put on like a hell of a show. And I'm looking ahead going, but I also need to spend the next year, 18 months learning what I need to learn so
Mm.
that when I come to trying to create the next thing, I actually can do it, you know?
There's also like there's no short, like there's no quick way of doing it. You
Yeah.
can't be like, well, I'll just wait till I'm good enough or like confident enough. You can't, like there's no short way of doing that. You do just have to like trudge through the mud a little bit. And I think that's also like, yeah, just being aware of being like, this is making me better, and this is part of the process, actually, like doing shows and whatever. And sometimes you feel like, wow, that was terrible. Or sometimes you're like, wow, that was great. But there's no way, like, you can't just be like, oh, I'm not gonna perform until I have like the perfect thing.
Mm.
Because then you would just never perform because it's never that. I think, I mean, for me anyway, it's like, even when you make something that you love and you perform it and it's really well received, there's always things that you're like, okay, next time I want to do it like this. I've never in my entire life done a show and been like, that was perfect. I
Yeah.
love that. That couldn't have, like, nothing could be different. Like,
Yeah.
it never happened.
And in a way, isn't that sort of almost is when you're in your self identity, having that will and that want to always seek the impossible perfection. I mean, I don't think it's any mistake that you have both jumped through lots of different types of artistry, performance, and lots of different genres as well, because it's constantly testing yourselves in these bottomless, formless spaces where there is always going to be more room to grow. Surely, like you say, if you did hit the perfect gig, if you did feel like I've learned it all, if you could see the edges of the box, then that is something to really go against. Even what the Pink Suits is about is to rail against these constructs, to go against this, because if it's perfect, if it's done, if it's fully in your control, then hasn't some of the art lost its magic?
Yeah, which I think is going back to leaving kind of the dance world. It's
Mm,
one thing that we felt very much in the dance world is that it is very controlled, and a lot of those pieces that we used to do, I felt would be the same regardless of whether or not there was an audience in the room.
yes.
Dress rehearsal would go the same as the show, and if you got a big clap at the end, that felt nice. But otherwise, like doing the show, there's not that much variation. Whereas I think both of us have much more of an instinct of like the reason why we're performing is to affect a feeling, a situation in the room that's full of people, which is actually why we have such a hard time making work, making performance work, writing music. We sit down to do it, and I'm like, I don't know how this is supposed to go
Mm,
until I'm in a room with people and you start to see like how it affects the mood of the room, how it affects the energy, how people move, how people. So we play songs when we've written them. They change loads when we first start gigging them because we're like, oh, that bit, it fell flat there, or people really responded to that, or we can do this bit a bit longer. And
Yeah, I think I think also not coming from music, we don't really know the rules. So
mm,
we can't follow them because we don't know them. So, which is, I think, like probably a bit frustrating for us, but also like quite cool in a way because it's just like we don't know what we're doing in a nice way. Um, and like I think a lot of people in like especially when you're like more in the industry of music, you would like go into a studio for however many weeks and write your album and record your album and then
mm.
perform it after you release it, which I can't even imagine do it. Like we on our last album we had 3 songs, 4 songs that we hadn't fully written before, and we finished writing them and then recorded them. And they are like actually some of my favorite songs, but it's interesting to be like, wow, if we would have done these live, like we do all of our other songs, we'll write them, we'll perform them for, I mean, for me, I'm like, I want to do at least 10 gigs with them
Mm.
before we record them because you do kind of like you change how you play them a little bit. And with the ones that we wrote in the recording studio, we were very aware of being like, this is how it sounds on the record. If it changes live, that's also totally fine,
Yeah.
which I'm sure they have. I haven't listened to our album in a while, but it's nice. It's interesting to like, yeah, it's interesting to not really know what the rules are and try and do it anyway.
I think there's a wonderful thing as well. And I came to a realization that any rule just comes down to somebody someday went, that's a rule now. And everyone else went and agreed and went, yeah, that's a rule. It's only because someone said it was a rule. So there are really no rules. It's just that it's a common shared value that people think they're rules, which is an interesting way of looking at it. But you
Yeah.
said something really good there as well about making sure the songs have the emotional resonance you wish them to have and then recording them. So it's almost like you've emotionally tested them before you've put them out there, which is a really interesting concept. You need to make sure they've got the value that you feel they're looking for before you commit them to like an artifact.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
we're you know, we're performance artists, we're performers, we're a live band. The whole instinct, the whole reason why we're making performance is to perform in front of
Yeah.
people. The whole reason we started writing music is because we had stuff that we wanted to say and a way that we wanted to say it to people in front of people live in the room. It's only once we started doing it that it was like, well, you should record an album, and we did.
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians must be like the recording process is really fun. We hate the process of like recording. We're like by ourselves in the room. We feel like loads of pressure to like do it really good and also like make content while we're doing it so we can be like,
Mm.
oh, we record like we hate that process. Like it isn't fun for us. Whereas I think if you're like a musician, you kind of get into the like nerdiness of like how you're recording and like what like how the sound translates and there's just loads of technical stuff that I kind of wish I wanted to know, but I just do not care.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's
more
like
like you
it's
say, it
kind of
almost makes sense.
boring. Like I just want to like get it done.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very like efficient. Like let's just go 2 takes. We're not going to do it better.
Yeah. I mean, it was just never the instinct. Like the instinct was get in a room with people and put on a show.
Yeah.
And that's why,
the, the the passion again, the just getting it out there. And something you said a little bit earlier on that really sort of resonated with me was you talked about authenticity, and then you went to dance and saying that when you were doing a dance, it almost could have been anyone doing that dance, and it could have been there might not have been an audience. And for me, that didn't strike me as a need to be seen by an audience, but more what you're doing now, 2 takes, get it out there. I hear resonating over and over again, passion, passion, passion,
Mhm.
authenticity. And that need as not just to be a number, not just to be defined by somebody else. This is, you are dancer number 3 and you are going to do this move to this move. And if you're very lucky, you get a little, and then we'll go on to the next one. But you can be replaced in a second. No, what I
Yeah.
see is like not standing by technique so much, having a knowledge of technique, but also most importantly, having that authenticity, having that passion that comes out in you both and in your identities again and again.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, that's why it changes all the time. We just went back and we actually just made a dance piece in Margate, like kind of a performance art dance piece in a gallery, which we've not done for years. And we sort of went back to that form and put this show together in 2 weeks. And we had such a good time. And it just felt, yeah, like it felt passionate. It felt like something that we wanted to be doing and wanted to be showing to people. It was like kind of experimental. We got a load of people in the room and just showed it to them.
Mm.
And in doing that, we were like, God, we've not fallen out with dance or live art or performance. We're not, now musicians and that's who we are. I think we're still all around all of these things. Um, and when we have the impulse to do them, we'll do a dance show. We'll do a visual art exhibition or whatever it is. We'll make a painting. But it does feel like right now it always comes from a place of doing whatever we want, however we want to do it. And
Very
which is
punk.
great. which it's very punk. Listen, it makes us no money, but we do. That is how
Very
we live
punk,
our life.
though. It's very punk.
But
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
we
it
have.
always is like the instinct of being like, we want to say this, whether it's like physically say it or like we want the feeling to be this, more than just like, oh, what should we make? Like we hardly ever have made something where it's like, we got to make something, what should it be? And there's no like, there's always like a very strong impulse through it from like before we start making something. So I don't know, I guess maybe some people like get a residency or like get support from someone and then are like, get a record label and then they're like, you have to write an album and they're like, okay,
Mm.
what should this album be? Like we're like, it's very clear what we want it to say. And that's why we're doing it. It's not like, and in the same way, it doesn't necessarily feel like an option to not do it because it's like we got to say this and
And do
figure
you
it
not
out.
think that like because you are not at the moment, like you say, you're not signed or you're not assigned one identity, that this does give you this freedom to flow, this freedom to be, to go, this is the message, but you have all these different interpretations, the physical styles, the musical styles, the emotional styles, that you can actually choose how to resonate this message rather than you might have an amazing idea, but if you're only just a punk band, not that that is just only a thing, but you could be, well, it can only come out in the form of music. This is the only
Yeah.
language that we're understood to express in, but you have these options. I mean,
Yeah.
you can just pick the one you want. I mean, I'm complete agreement. Pro wrestler and everything as well. There's all these ways that it can come out of me, and I really love the fact that you are saying exactly the same thing. That this is, this is the spark we have. This is the intent we have, and this is the language you wish to speak it in.
Yeah. I wonder, I was just thinking, I wonder if it's the same for you. Because that's exactly how it is for us, and it's really freeing emotionally and creatively. We really do just do what we want. But as a sort of, I don't know, artistic business model, I think it confuses the hell out of some people.
Yes.
They're
It
like,
does.
well, the last few years we've definitely been predominantly a band and we've definitely been read as that. But some people see us and they're like, I think they get confused. They're like, are you a band? Now we do this country thing as well. They're like, are you punk? Are you country? Are you dancers? Are you performance artists?
Also, because
Mm,
our like, our social media is quite camp.
mm.
And I guess people just see pictures and then they expect it to maybe be pop. I don't know what they expect, but there a lot of the time people have seen us on social media and then they're like very surprised that it's so aggressive or
Yeah, and
like,
political. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like I think people like I mean, when we started our Instagram, we hadn't done anything except put like a couple of pictures, and people were like, "Oh my God, we love your work." We're like, "We haven't made
Wow.
it."
They've
What are
already
you talking?
categorized you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
was wild.
we didn't know what the
We were
category
like,
was. We
we
were like,
literally have never made anything. We don't know what you're talking about. Like we posted a picture of us. I can't even remember what it was, like in pink, I'm assuming. But yeah, it's really interesting, like how what people expect of you and like in like there's not that many artists I think that do like such a variety of things even like within what like we just saw an artist that we really like perform in London who's a musician but she's been in a really popular punk band, she did like a country album, she's done like club albums, like she's done loads of different things and she like will not be categorized in her like
Brilliant.
musical genre and that's actually super rare.
And
Which is surprising, but it is.
yeah, but I mean, this is what you said there, Lenny. I do actually agree with it. Sort of like it gets to a point where you are making stuff, but then you're almost forced into a categorization because I don't know if it's marketing or like expectation of from others, but like, okay, this is the thing that we know you as, so you have to do this now.
Mhm.
This is what we expect. But almost like you said, going back to the beginning of the conversation, turning up in one venue, a music venue, and then doing performance, that it subverts that expectation, which again is very punk, but not having to play by the rules, so to speak, not having to completely always speak in the expected creative language, more important, having the passion and almost resetting the rules so people don't just get what they expect. It forces them to wake up and acknowledge what's going on and see things in a different light.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like live performance is slightly, I don't know, it feels like a kind of different landscape right now than maybe, I don't know, when we met like 12 years ago,
Yeah.
each other for a long time. And I feel like back then in that like London performance art cabaret, just the like London, the performance scene. It was much more of just there was just performance nights, and you'd go and someone would go and do something like, maybe you'd be there and you'd be wrestling, or maybe you'd be there and you'd be putting your head under a tank of water, or maybe you'd be
Mm.
there, someone will be there and they'd be hanging from something, or the next time they'd be reading poetry. And I feel like there was a moment when I first started making work that was much more fluid like that. There was a load of people, they were out and about, and you'd see them and be like, oh, you're doing that now.
Yeah.
I've never seen you do that, but like you're doing that. And that was cool. And now I feel like there's a lot more pressure, and I don't know if it's the venues or the audiences or it's just sort of happened. I don't know if it's social
I
media
think
because
it's a lot social media
so,
because you
Yeah.
kind of have to like brand yourself.
you have to
Oh my word,
It's a
perfect.
little
Yeah, I
bit
completely
confusing if
agree.
you do more than one thing on there. It's like, wait, like we've done gigs where we've turned up, it's a punk gig, and they're like, country punk band. And you're like, what? Not a
Yeah.
country punk band. Like, we're just a punk band. We just run a country night also. Like, we just, So yeah, I think social media has like massively inhibited like the freedom of like gender bending, genre
Well,
bending, and
Ray,
gender
now you've said that, it absolutely makes sense because when you look at most social medias, there is a box, a bio at the top that's a very small bio. It doesn't give you an opportunity to put a paragraph. It's like, what are you? 3 words go.
yeah,
And that's it. So you're exactly what you said. You're forced to brand yourself. You're forced to go, okay, here are some, and exactly what I'm sort of trying to rail against with this project is like forcing yourself into these boxes of categorization because that's what's expected or that's easy to digest. But truly, identity is fluid. It's in a constant state of flux, and that's what should make life so excited. It's like
Mm.
exciting, even go against the expected.
yeah. Yeah, and I feel like audiences looking to social media to see what kind of thing they want to go to. People look at what it is online, so they sort of know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
ruins it.
Yeah, I feel like if you go to a performance tonight, you just like people are going to do some stuff, and like like your night the other night, like we couldn't have been two more different like pieces of performance
Yeah.
next to each other. Um, which like I don't know if that would have read on social media. I think people would have been like what is the night? But then if
To be
you just
honest, I
go,
don't know if it made any sense to anyone else, but it made perfect sense to me, and I loved it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. That's what I like is when you go and you're just like, well, they're gonna do this performance and that's great, and then this is gonna happen and that's great, and like the whole experience over the night like takes shape. Um,
Hmm.
but like we're in complete maybe not completely different worlds artistically, but completely different forms. And then it's
Hmm.
exciting to see like what happens when you stick those two together, and how does that make the vibe in the room. Yeah.
But yeah, but also as well, it's almost like we've gone back to audience again for me as well. That sometimes for audiences now, like we say back a few years ago, when you would just show up and you just didn't know what to expect, and there was a certain level of freedom and enjoyment of like, well, I'm here now, so what will be will be. That losing the control as an audience as well. It's like, well, we'll just enjoy what happens, and trying not to have that expectation, just trying to be able to feel free in what you do. And sometimes that's when the greatest experiences happen, when the
Yeah.
unexpected happens in front of you and you get a chance to question yourself, to question your identity, to question your loves and enjoyments. Because then, true, in a way, wouldn't you think that's what art is? The ability to question and change?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, which sometimes I get bummed out about it. Like I've actually seen a couple of great performance art pieces recently, and like watching you, I think we spoke after your show. I was like, God,
Mm.
it's so good to see some like performance art because I feel like we used to see it a lot,
Yeah.
and it's sort of slightly different. But I feel like it's across the board, the like it's an also an economic
Yeah.
issue to
Yeah.
take a risk, to like to change your practice, to like to be like, I'm gonna make a performance. I don't know how it's gonna go. I don't know if people are gonna like it or how it's gonna affect the room. Like to take a sort of creative risk in an economy that is precarious, or
Yeah.
even more precarious now than it was, 10 or 15 years ago, is like an incredibly difficult thing to do. And audiences are more risk averse. They want to know what they're going to and if they're just going to have fun. And
Mm.
venues are more risk averse because they're like, we just, we need the shows that are just going to sell tickets. So then people have to commit to being like, well, I'm going to make this and it's going to be kind of popular. It's going to sell tickets. People are going to know what they want. So I feel like the whole risk taking, identity changing, you know, performance that can't be boxed in. I don't know. I think it massively suffers when you're in a sort of struggling arts economy and a struggling like social economy.
Yeah.
Risk is it's
It's,
hard to take. Yeah, it's risky.
yeah, but you
We
know
can't
what?
all,
Sometimes
we can't take them.
Yeah.
sometimes if you do, like I say, if the only thing in life is a comfort of expectation, then where is the true enjoyment of discovery? Like
Yeah.
you need to be able to take those unexpected risks. You need to take the left rather than the right, because otherwise it's the same day every day. It's Groundhog Day. I
Yeah.
do need to say though quickly, I did apart from my amazing ability not to press record at the beginning of a conversation. Has anybody on the chat got any questions they would like to ask? Everyone's been very good and very quiet tonight. But if anybody's got anything to ask, this is question time. But if not, we're going to carry on chatting. I'm just having a look now. I know you have an ability to chat because I turned it on. Is everybody good? Is everybody enjoying themselves and just wants to keep hearing us talk? No, I think everyone's just having a listen. I did get a message earlier on a WhatsApp that they're just enjoying the conversation. So I guess what if anyone pops up with a question, I will answer it. But if not, we'll just carry on. So yeah, I mean, the big one for me then is like, so what do you feel? How do we combat risk? Or how do we bring risk back? How do we make more people less risk averse? Do you think it is about commerce or about having more economic stability or less fear?
Yeah, I think it's the whole issue is like a vast one, and one that's, it slowly happens and has slowly happened that,
Mm,
venues closing is a massive issue. And that's happened consistently over a long period of time, that more and more venues have closed. And a lot of the ones that were having experimental kind of risque performance have closed. So I think access to space where you can try stuff out is like crucial. And they've
And
closed.
also audiences, like I do, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
I do feel like it's a lot harder to sell tickets now
yes.
than it was 10 years ago. And I think that's like, down to many, many things. But like, the cost of living is much higher. People are, yeah, it's harder to be like holding everything. And I think like a lot of people when they do go out, they just wanna, I guess maybe switch off, or they want something that's like super cheap, or they want something that's just like easy. I
Yes.
think like there's a lot in, especially I feel in the like, you know, performance scene, drag has gotten much, much bigger, which is cool. But I feel like there's less nights that are just like general performance nights. There's more nights that are drag nights, which is cool, but like it's a very specific form and there's quite an easy formula that kind of like it seems that people can kind of slot into with drag. And it's very like audiences know what to expect and venues know what to expect. The tech is easy. There's not that much mess. It's like it's
Yeah.
easy. And audiences are like, yep, I know what to do. I know when to cheer. They're going to do this. I'm not feeling super challenged. Like, which for me personally, I'm like kind of bored. But I think like for a lot of people, that's nice and comfortable. And I
Yeah.
think like, yeah, for like venues needing to sell tickets because otherwise it cannot happen. You have to do stuff that audiences are coming to. And it's hard to get audiences to come to stuff that they don't know what to expect, you
Do you
know?
feel do you feel that it's almost as well that it's so easy to get content out there now that you can just have a phone and record yourself that maybe and people are used to just getting everything from a phone where they don't have to move from their setting at home. Maybe even the physical act of saying to someone, come to a venue now, that's been lost a little bit. And of course,
Yeah.
those 2 years out of lockdown where people got out of the habit of going to places where
Yeah.
everything was just consumed online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's a whole, I mean, this is a rabbit hole
Yeah,
that will
I
that
already
will
have a
take
feeling we could have a
off.
whole another conversation at
Yeah,
some
this is a
point.
this is a whole other podcast that
Yeah,
probably is out there as well around like the content of content, like
yes,
the contents of performance, the substance of performance, which like in the age of social media and kind of digital content creation is like massively different. Like the impulse to perform, as we spoke about before, the impulse to perform because we want to be in a room with people experiencing an emotion or a feeling or trying to affect an energy in the room
yes,
live together is very different to like creating performative content digitally just for views. Like
likes,
that is like
yeah,
there's an economy, an entire economy that is based around views and engagement that I think a lot of digital content creation and things that people are making online is fantastic and amazing, really thought through, really political, but a lot of it is not, and a lot of it is just about engagement and creating performance in that way doesn't, I don't know, it's just a very different world when you're like, I'm trying to get eyes on the phone or clicks on the link or views on the
yeah.
digital platform, and that's the goal is just
Engagement.
engagement. And I feel like it changes this kind of substance or the reasoning, like why.
The
Yeah.
emotional resonance. You
Yeah,
know,
which is
like
like
if you,
I
which a lot of people are making a living out of, and like, great. And a lot of the
yeah,
content that's being made is great. We're terrible at it. And I think that's just because we don't like we come from a different impulse performatively.
yes,
It's also interesting, like with the sort of like social media, digital content stuff, it feels a lot also like not even when you're just making digital content to be digital content, but it feels like a lot of performance, live performance is also kind of made to be consumed digitally and like, oh, this will look really good on if someone takes a little video, this will read well. And
yeah,
like that's enough, or like yeah, that's enough. Whereas like for me, if I go see a performance, I don't want to be even thinking about filming it. Like I don't want to be like, oh my God, this is so good, I should film it.
thank you.
Whereas, like, a
Yeah,
lot of that is like what a lot of people want for their work because it does get you out there more. If people are filming you while you're performing, it's like double the audience. So it's like, it does make sense. But for me, I'm like, the most flattering compliment I could get performing is no videos of it, that people are
I
watching it and don't even think that it's like a thing, or like they don't think of doing that because they're just watching. But it's so rare that like, people, yeah, because people want to be like, oh, I saw this. And it's like, well, what did you think of it? They don't think about it's
they'll
not
just show you the video. Yeah,
Yeah.
the talking about work is really different because people just put it on their story or put it on Instagram, like it's a really, really different way of like interacting with performance that like I find very frustrating and annoying.
Don't you feel that sometimes, though, this is going to have to be the last question, that as a performer, it's when you lose yourself in that moment of being, when there's no beginning or end, you're caught in the moment. And for me, I'm exactly the same with people recording it. If they've got to record it, fair enough. But for me, if you can just lose them, they can lose themselves in it as well. So they're being present as well. We're all being present. We're all sharing this ephemeral moment. That is so, that's for me the nature of art, the nature of performance, that you get caught up in this moment, as opposed to you have to record it for prosperity, live it, be it, actualize it, as opposed to like, oh, I'll show it to someone else next week and maybe they'll.
It also changes, like as a performer, it so changes how you feel in a moment. If you're like, okay, I'm in not much and I'm doing this like kind of vulnerable thing and I know it's going to be on fucking Instagram. So like now I feel really conscious of like what other things besides actually what I'm doing in the moment, and like taking things from performance out of context and seeing them online also kind of like, worst case scenario is like makes them like really weird or like it like doesn't work at all. Best case scenario, people are like, it looked really good. And you're like,
that was nice.
You don't know what it was, but like, thank you. But it can go also really wrong when people just take like one tiny bit and put it online. You're like, well, that is not what the show was. That's not what that moment was. You like, yeah, it's like completely out of context. And now I feel really weird about it. Like it's really crazy with the social media stuff. It feels weird.
Well, I knew this was going to go quickly. And it was absolutely like it just shot past. I think we might have to do another podcast at some point.
Yeah, we should do it.
There was like, you were like long form answers, and I was just like, oh, that's really good. And that's really good.
Yeah, sorry, but yeah.
It's brilliant. So we're coming towards the end of the year now, and I know from when we met up the other day how tireless you both are. So we're at a few last thousands of gigs that people can see you at before the end of the year. Now, where can people follow you? And yeah, we'll definitely sort out another one soon.
Yeah, bless you for calling us tireless. We're tired. It's been a long year. But what are we doing? We've got one punk show left. We've mostly spoken about punk music tonight, but we've got one show left, which is going to be in Hastings.
Amazing.
With the Hastings Punk Choir, who are just an amazing group. So that's the only punk show, and we've not got any punk shows booked in next year. Like we said, we're interrogating our music practice over the winter, and we're going to see what happens. So that's the punk show. We've got this night Queer Cuntry that we run, and we're doing it in Margate on the 22nd of November, and in London in Walthamstow on the 29th of November.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah, you should come along. It's a big camp country dress up, drag queens playing fiddle, and we'll do some line dancing and
but that's it.
We didn't even get a chance to talk about like country and western, but again, that's a whole nother conversation about identity and stuff as well. But yeah, I mean, your way of getting me into the song Wagon Wheel and the other version, which is absolutely incredible as well. But yeah, listen, so Pink Suits online. I know we just talked about content and social media and stuff, but Pink Suits on pretty much everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. The next podcast is on Wednesday. Look at my eyes in Wednesday, the 30th of October, with Kenny Marmela de Cruz from Men's Group, and we're going to have a chat about therapy and masculinity in crisis, a few things like that, and also transforming from masculinity into just your own authentic, fluid identity as well, which is a lot more important than grrr or anything like that. But listen, once again, thank you so much. I'll speak to you again soon. Enjoy the rest of the year, and yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. All the best. Bye now.
Bye, love.